Hi, I'm Maximilian Alvarez. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Real News Network and host of the podcast Working People. And this is the Art of Class War on Breaking Points. On Wednesday of this week, Shawn Fain, the reform president of the United Auto Workers, who led his union through last year's historic stand-up strike at Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis, formally endorsed Joe Biden for president in the 2024 general elections on behalf of the union, which represents 391,000 active members and more than 580,000 retired members. Fain famously refused to endorse Biden or any other candidate last year, warning that the union's coveted endorsement would need to be earned, especially when it came to how candidates responded to the auto workers' strike in September and October. But Fain's endorsement of Biden and Biden's subsequent acceptance of that endorsement was greeted with defiance from a contingent of rank-and-file UAW members who argue that with this endorsement, the union is contradicting its own stated support for an immediate, permanent ceasefire in Gaza. Endorsing Joe Biden for president, Joe Biden, a self-proclaimed Zionist, whose administration has been the #1 military, financial, and political supporter of Israel's genocidal assault on Gaza and its ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, is a clear and blatant contradiction that undercuts Fain's and the UAW's stated commitment to, quote, standing for justice across the globe. And some UAW members took direct action to disrupt Biden's address to the union on Wednesday in order to hold the union leadership to their own words. Here is cell phone video from the action, which workers shared with us.
No matter what that was, it should be built.
For this Breaking Points exclusive edition of the Art of Class War, I got to interview 3 of the union members who disrupted Biden's speech on Wednesday. Less than 1 hour after they were dragged out of the event by Secret Service, I sat down and spoke with Shahinaz Ghaneed, Nikki Thomas, and Johanna King-Slotsky of UAW Local 2710. Here's our conversation, which we recorded from the Real News studio here in Baltimore.
My name is Shahinaz Ghaneed. I am with UAW Northeastern University, organizing and higher education. I am a 4th-year JD PhD student in criminology and criminal justice. And we just won our election back in September, so we are new to the UAW.
Yes. And hello, my name is Nikki Thomas. I am also at Northeastern University with GENU UAW as a higher ed organizer. I'm in the bioengineering department, if anybody cares.
I'm Johanna. I am a 5th-year PhD candidate and teach as well at Columbia University. I'm getting my degree in English and comparative literature. And I'm a member of UAW Local 2710.
Awesome. Well, again, can't thank y'all enough for making it on this call. We are recording this on Wednesday, literally 1 hour after the UAW president Shawn Fain endorsed President Joe Biden in the 2024 elections on behalf of the UAW. And y'all were there at the event in Washington, D.C., along with other union members, making a statement, protesting, demonstrating in the midst of this event, calling for an immediate ceasefire, demanding that the UAW, continue to hold President Biden and his administration accountable for their complicity in continuing to support the ongoing genocidal violence in Gaza. I wanted to just ask, since we are lucky enough to have the 3 of you on here, if we could just go back around the table and have y'all give our viewers and listeners a play-by-play of what happened today from start to finish.
Yes, so I want to give the broader context first that a group of us within the UAW has formed called Labor for Palestine.
UAW Labor for Palestine.
UAW Labor for Palestine. And we have been organizing, and particularly during this UAW conference, the CAP conference, around more actions related to pushing our elected officials to support a ceasefire. So the UAW had already passed internal resolutions, and we knew that the International Executive Board, including President Sean Fain, supported a ceasefire in Palestine. And now it was time for us to really show that we wanted to make sure that our political endorsements were going to align with that. So that's the context of the broader week. We got about 1,000 signatures in the span of from Monday to now, so 3 days. From our members, 750 at this conference, and then many members sent the link to the petition back to their own home units as well, and we got signatures that way. And throughout the conference, we have been demonstrating every time that someone has gotten on the stage who doesn't want to talk about the issue, we've erupted in chants of ceasefire now. We did this with Bernie. We did this quite a bit. We're lobbying on the Hill as well to get our elected officials to support a permanent, not just a temporary ceasefire. And we spoke to the International Executive Board because there was a lot of rumors going around that they were going to endorse Joe Biden, even though he has still refused to align himself with the UAW's position on a permanent ceasefire. And we felt, and the members who signed on to that petition felt, that that was not okay, that the UAW really need to stick to our values and stick to the statements that we had made and that President Sean Fain had made, that we weren't going to just hand out endorsements to politicians. They needed to get in line on the issues that labor cares about, and ceasefire is an issue that labor cares about. So we stood up today because the International Executive Board did not listen to us and did not listen to its membership and went ahead to endorse President Biden anyways. We stood up. We had a Palestinian flag that said UAW Labor for Palestine. We started to chant ceasefire now while having our fists up with a solidarity fist. And we were immediately rushed by Secret Service agents who grabbed us at some point. Anywhere from between half a dozen to a dozen were surrounding us and dragged us out in a line as we were still holding on to the flag, trying to rip the flag out of our hands. They knocked 2 of our members over. They tried to knock me onto the 2 of them while they were on the floor. You can see that in the video with me trying to like push back against the person who was holding me and who was trying to push me onto the other 2 that are sitting here next to me. And we were ultimately dragged out of the conference hall and removed from the floor that it was happening on in the conference hotel.
Yeah, that was a pretty good summary of everything that happened. There's not much to add on, though. I will say you will probably see like maybe different statements about how other UAW members chanted over us while we were chanting. And I definitely think we've talked to a lot of people actually at this conference over the last few days who have come up to us and have been supportive on a personal level. But when it comes to this, they seem not ready to publicly come out in support in the way that we did today. And I think a lot of it has to do, I'm sure we'll get into this later, but I think a lot of it has to do with fear. Like our politics these days are all about fear. The Republican Party runs on fear. The Democratic Party runs on fear. And there's a lot of talk within the UAW about fear of losing their jobs, fear of what's coming next. And so I think this is a reflection of that. But I am extremely disappointed, especially since it's coming off of multiple speeches by President Sean Fain that seem to say the exact opposite of what happened today and what President Biden was saying today. And if I'm being quite frank, very disappointing considering this morning Rashida Tlaib came and spoke with us as well and spoke to our membership about what it meant to her. So that's all I have to add on that. Anyway,
I think it's hard because being here, we just walk around with the keffiyeh and people come up to us and say like thank you for doing this. Like, so many people here are behind the ceasefire demand. It's like, it's a really warm, amazing atmosphere, and people are like fired up about this. And I think, it's true. There's a kind of UAW members are known for being fearless, but there's in moments a culture of fear that we haven't gotten rid of yet. And so I think, I don't want to speak for all three of us, you guys can chime in, but I think that we're trying to show that you don't need to be afraid to stand up to power and kind of present another positive option, a positive vision that isn't rooted in just like being afraid of consequences and letting that determine everything. Of course, you have to make a political calculus, but it doesn't have to be rooted only in fear. It can also be rooted in a promise of a better world, and that's what we're trying to create.
Yes.
Right. I mean, as we mentioned in the introduction to this segment, I mean, at the time that the United Auto Workers formally signed on to the call for a ceasefire in Palestine, they were the largest union to do so. Only replaced this week by the Service International Employees Union, SEIU, Service Employees International Union, who have also put out a call for a permanent ceasefire. And as y'all mentioned, like Sean Fain himself, has been, really at the forefront of the labor movement, speaking out against the violence in Gaza, the U.S. support of it. And yeah, how could it not undercut that message to then kind of turn around and endorse Joe Biden, the self-proclaimed Zionist president of the United States of America, who has shown no signs really at all of ending the continual U.S. support for the very genocidal violence that the union was calling to end. So I wanted to sort of ask about that, right? Because I think one question folks will have, and especially given the fact that the United Auto Workers is not only, representing workers in the auto industry, but as you three are living proof of, UAW has expanded to a number of other industries, including higher education, where it has a strong foothold in a number of universities around the country. And that's an important part of the union's membership as well. And I can envision folks watching this and trying to sort of pit that side of the UAW against, the traditional blue collar, roughneck sort of industrial worker side and the auto manufacturing side of the union. So I wanted to ask if you could comment on that. If the folks who signed the petition, who have been coming up to you, represent the other sides of the UAW, and if you wanted to mention that for viewers and listeners. And also, if we could just go back around the table one more time and sort of talk about why this was so important to you all as union members, as workers, and what your message is to folks out there who are in a union or, who are not, about why they should get involved in this fight and what they can do to push for a ceasefire and to end this madness in Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think my answer will hopefully respond to both of your questions. I think to start off, we want to really fundamentally reject the idea that this is some sort of higher ed workers versus blue collar workers or versus auto workers type of dynamic. The people that are at this conference and that have been coming up to us and supporting us have covered all the industries that the UAW represents, including people who are on the assembly lines for defense companies and are making some of the weaponry that the U.S. is sending to Palestine currently, or to Israel, actually.
Sending to Israel to use on Palestinians.
Unfortunately. And even those workers are extremely interested and have been talking to us about ways that we can figure out a just transition for the defense industry in this country so that we can keep those good union jobs, but stop using the U.S. defense industry as a way to oppress and colonize other countries, or in this case, to help another country colonize another country. So I want to say that it's all parts of the UAW membership that are on board with this, and this is not a higher ed only issue. I'd also say that a big part of why this is a labor issue is not just because of international solidarity. We've had calls from trade unionists in Palestine to stand up in solidarity with them, and I think people have heard that, but also because here in the US, workers, not just us, other industries as well, have been facing a lot of pushback from their employers when they try to speak out, even the most sort of mild level of support of Palestine. Any even vaguely anti-Israel statement is being used by employers at this point to suspend people, to fire people in various ways. Not just at our campuses where we're employed, but in different industries as well. And so I think that part of that fear, as my comrades were saying, is what is motivating people to really be concerned about voicing the support that they've privately shared with us out into the world. I'd also want to name respectability politics as one of the things that maybe contributed to people shouting UAW, UAW in response to our calls for ceasefire now, because every other time we did it at this conference, people were in extreme amounts of support and were coming up and congratulating us afterwards. But after this particular instance, we had the UAW chants, and then we had people coming up and say, did you know you just disrupted the president? Did you just know that you disrespected the president? I think this idea, even though we live in a democracy, even though we have free speech, some people still hold on to this idea of treating our politicians like they're almost kings, like royalty, that we have to show this particular amount of deference to. And we're rejecting that. We're saying the UAW has power. Joe Biden would not have come to the UAW looking for an endorsement if workers did not have power in this country. We do not need to cow down in fear. We need to stand up together and show that workers across this country support a free Palestine and support a permanent ceasefire.
I definitely agree with everything that China has just said. And just to add on to that, because I know you also asked about like, what can we do? A lot of these conversations that we've been having actually all boil down to just awareness and education. Like a lot of the conversations I've been having with people, they don't know all the information maybe that we know about what's happening in Palestine, or even the history of the conflict. And so a lot of the conversations that we've been having have just been going over some of that basic information. And every single person I've talked to, once I've done that, like go, wow, I didn't realize, I didn't know. And so I think when it comes to other unionists trying to do similar kinds of movements in their unions, getting their unions to call for a ceasefire, I think people really have to spend a good amount of time on speaking with their fellow union members and educating them on the truth, because the only thing that they get to see is what American media shows them. And as we all know, at this current time, it's full of propaganda and lies. And they've never even heard the other side of this story. So I think that's going to be really important for us, even moving forward, that educational aspect of it. Because I think once people realize what's actually going on, that's when they really start standing behind us. Like there were people I talked to over multiple days who on this last day came up and said, hey, I just signed your petition. And just to clarify, the petition that we have specifically is asking for UAW CAP to not endorse or fund candidates who have not called for a ceasefire. So while what we saw there was like people chanting over us, in the background, we are still actively working to make some kind of essentially BDS happen within our union.
Yeah, I think that was all great. And I guess I want to add, like, anybody who came here to this conference will know that there is no division in UAW between the different industries. This is such a space of warmth and solidarity. And people know what our views are because we've been walking around with the keffiyehs the entire time. We all have ceasefire badges on our passes.
We gave out stickers.
We gave out stickers. People are wearing these all over the place, by the way. Like people are just, it's like you just walk around and you hit 5 people with a ceasefire sticker. It's everywhere, right? And we've been chanting, getting up in speeches. Like there are a million opportunities, and people know that we're in higher ed too. there are a million opportunities for people to, say something untoward about us or to us. Doesn't happen. We're only getting thank you. Thank you for doing that. Like, how can I be part of it? We handed out flyers. We literally ran out like 3 or 4 times of people asking for links to the petition or our website to join the movement. Like, this is a big grassroots movement and people here are interested and excited about it. The only thing is, convincing people to move past this initial anxiety that they're still working through of like, what can I do when I'm in a room with the president of the United States and he stands for something different? We have to show people, no, it's safe to do this. You can take action to fulfill your vision for a better world. But they share that vision. And I see our movement growing every single day. The fact that we managed to get like nearly 1,000 signatures in the space of a couple days when we're like all sleep deprived and barely coherent when we're writing a petition, that's incredible. That's a sign of people being like fired up. And I know there's going to be some change in UAW as long as the leadership follows through with their values and listens to their members.
Right. If I could add on really quickly to that, even because we've been chanting actually for the entire conference, even right before President Biden came out, people knew we were going to, like, our members knew we were going to do it. Everybody knew. And we had like, I want to say at least like 7 different people approach us before to like thank us, offer us support. They knew they were like, if you get arrested, we're here for you. That all happened right before. So even though like it may seem like we have division, I really don't perceive it that way.
We're holding up the solidarity fist. I don't know.
It was hard to see, but like
because it got blocked by Secret Service.
We were not alone. There was solidarity in the room, even if it was difficult to hear.
Our table was full of people from other industries. It was like, I'm gonna say like 75%, 25% of like these more conventional like factory type jobs, manufacturing jobs, and then the higher ed folks. We're all sitting at the same table. It's like
they took a pic. They asked for a picture together with us before because they knew this would happen.
Up their fists, like we're all on the same team here.
Just everyone offering, can we call a lawyer for you? Can we do anything?
Yes.
Like, are you concerned about getting arrested? Are you concerned about anything happening?
Can we raise funds, jail funds? Like
people were expecting us to do this because we've done it. I mean, we started chanting ceasefire now in the middle of one of Sean Fain's speeches.
And he smiled. And I have it on my Twitter.
And on the UAW Twitter. Actually. So like people knew and they were happy for us and they were supportive going into it. And I really just do want to highlight that. I don't think that there is division between higher ed and the rest of the UAW industries.
What we did was in the very spirit of the UAW and in the spirit of unionists in general.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
And we'll be doing it again until President Biden calls for a ceasefire.
That's correct.
That's right.
Free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
Hell yeah.
So that was Shahinaz Ghaneed, Nikki Thomas, and Johanna King-Slutsky, 3 union members and organizers with UAW Local 2710. I want to thank our guests again for joining us, and I want to thank you all for watching this segment with Breaking Points. And be sure to subscribe to my news outlet, The Real News Network, with links in the description of this video. See you soon for the next edition of The Art of Class War. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Solidarity forever.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.